Los Angeles, 1957. A Tuesday afternoon. Unremarkable. Hot. Marlon Brando walks into a small hardware store on the east side of the city. Not Beverly Hills, not Sunset Boulevard. The kind of street where people fix things instead of replacing them. He is not here to be seen. He is wearing a plain white shirt, old boots, a cap pulled low. Nobody looks up. He picks up a box of nails, sets it on the counter, and that is when he hears it. A woman's voice, quiet, trembling. "Please, I just need 2 more weeks." Brando turns slowly. In the corner of the store, half hidden behind a shelf of paint cans, a woman stands with her back against the wall. She is maybe 50. Her dress is clean but worn thin at the elbows. Her hands are clasped in front of her like she is praying. Standing opposite her is a man in a light gray suit, heavy gold ring on his right hand, a smile that has nothing warm in it. 2 weeks, the man says. Not a question, a repetition. He lets it sit there like something dirty. "My husband passed 4 months ago," the woman says. Her voice barely holds. "The shop is all I have left. I just need a little more time." The man in the gray suit opens a small notebook. He runs his finger down a column of numbers. He does not look up. "Mrs. Calloway," he says, "the numbers don't care about your husband." Brando stands completely still. The store owner behind the counter stares at the floor. The 2 other customers have gone very quiet. Everyone can hear. Nobody moves. Brando is still holding the box of nails. He has not moved a single inch. He is watching the man in the gray suit the way a person watches a thing they have seen before. Not surprised, not shocked, just watching. Filing it away somewhere deep and permanent. The man in the gray suit closes his notebook. He looks at the woman with an expression of absolute boredom. "I'll be back Friday," he says, "with the full amount, or I take the inventory." He turns to leave. He walks directly past Marlon Brando. Brando does not grab him, does not raise his voice, does not block the door. He just looks at the man, directly, without blinking, without expression. The man in the gray suit stops walking. Something happens in that moment that nobody in the store can fully explain later. The man just stops, like he has walked into something invisible. He looks at Brando's face, and he recognizes him. Everyone in America recognizes that face by 1957. Stanley Kowalski, Terry Malloy, the white t-shirt, the heavy eyes that hold everything and give away nothing. But that is not what stops the man cold. It is something else. It is the way Marlon Brando is looking at him, not with anger, not with celebrity, with something that feels like complete and total knowledge, like Brando has already seen exactly how this man's story ends. The man in the gray suit says nothing. He walks out. The door closes. The store is silent. Mrs. Calloway has her hand over her mouth. Her eyes are wet. She does not know what just happened either. Brando sets his box of nails back on the shelf. He walks over to her slowly. He says, very quietly, "What does your shop sell?" She blinks. "Sewing, alterations. I do alterations." He nods once. He reaches into his jacket. He places an envelope on the shelf beside her without a word. Then he picks up his nails, pays the store owner, and leaves. Nobody follows him. Nobody calls out. Outside, the street is the same as when he walked in. Hot. Loud in the distance. A truck rumbles past. A dog barks somewhere behind a fence. Brando walks half a block. He stops. He stands on the sidewalk for a moment with the box of nails in his hand. He is not thinking about fame, not thinking about the film he is scheduled to shoot next week. He is thinking about a 9-year-old boy at the top of a staircase in Omaha, watching his father shrink. He never talks about this moment, but it is in him the way certain things are in a person, not a memory exactly, a compass. Then he keeps walking. Mrs. Calloway opens the envelope. Inside is enough money to cover 6 months of debt. No note, no name. But here is the part that nobody knew for almost 40 years, because the story does not end there. 3 days later, Marlon Brando makes a phone call. Not to a friend, not to his agent. To a lawyer he knows. A man who handles contracts and paperwork and quiet arrangements. He asks a single question. How do you legally end a man's ability to collect on a predatory loan in the state of California? The lawyer tells him. It takes 40 minutes. Predatory loan law, debt acquisition, assignment of obligation. The lawyer explains every step carefully, expecting questions. Brando asks none. He already understands the logic. He spent years playing men who operate in the spaces between what is legal and what is right. He knows exactly how the machinery works. Brando listens carefully. He thanks him. He hangs up. He sits for a moment in the quiet of wherever he is. He does not call anyone else. He does not talk about it. He picks up a pen and writes down 3 names: his own intermediary, a title company, a third party to hold the paperwork. Over the next 3 weeks, working entirely through intermediaries, Marlon Brando purchases the outstanding debt held against Mrs. Calloway's shop, not as a favor, not as charity. He purchases it as a legal instrument, and then he dissolves it. The man in the gray suit shows up on Friday as promised. The debt no longer exists. He has no legal ground to stand on. The inventory is untouchable. He never comes back. Mrs. Calloway keeps her shop open for another 19 years. She never knows who did it. The lawyer is instructed never to say. She takes in apprentices, young women from the neighborhood who need work and a place to learn something useful. She charges them nothing for the first 3 months. She feeds them lunch. She tells them the same thing every time they make a mistake with the needle. Start over, do it clean, and never let anyone rush you. In 1976, a local paper runs a small feature on her shop. The headline calls her a pillar of the community. She cuts it out. She pins it above the sewing table. She never connects any of it to a Tuesday afternoon in 1957 and a man in a cap who asked what her shop sold. This is who Marlon Brando is when the cameras are off. But to understand why he does this, you have to understand where he comes from. Omaha, Nebraska, 1,930 seconds. The Brando house is not a warm place. His father is a traveling salesman, cold and exacting, a man who expresses love through criticism and control. His mother is the opposite, creative, theatrical, alive with feeling, but increasingly disappearing into a bottle. Young Marlon watches both of them from the corner of the room. He learns something early. There is a specific memory he carries. He is 9 years old. Winter. His family is 3 months behind on rent. A man in a good coat comes to the door. He speaks to his father in a low, polite voice that is not polite at all. His father nods. His father shrinks. Young Marlon watches from the top of the stairs and feels something hot and unnameable rise in his chest. Not fear. Something harder than fear. He never forgets that man's coat, that voice, that practiced, comfortable cruelty. Power is the only language some people understand. And the people who use it against the weak are not monsters. They are cowards. Every single one of them. Cowards dressed in good coats and gold rings and gray suits. He carries that knowledge with him out of Omaha, into New York, into Stella Adler's classroom on the 3rd floor of a building that smells like cigarettes and ambition. Stella sees something in him immediately, not talent, not raw material to be shaped. A person who already feels too much and has nowhere to put it. She teaches him to put it on the page, to live inside a character instead of performing one, to stop acting and start being. He is not an easy student. He arrives late, he argues, he disappears for days and comes back without explanation. But when he is present, really present, the room changes. Other students feel it. They go quiet. They watch him the way the hardware store goes quiet in 1957, like something is happening that they do not have words for yet. Stella tells a colleague privately, "This one is not learning to act. He already knows how to feel. I am just teaching him where to stand." In 1947, Brando walks onto a Broadway stage as Stanley Kowalski in A Streetcar Named Desire. The audience does not applaud at the curtain. They sit in silence for a full 3 seconds. Then the theater shakes. Something has broken open in American culture. Nobody has ever seen a man perform like this. Raw, unpredictable, physically overwhelming, like watching a live wire dropped into standing water. Hollywood comes calling immediately. He goes, on his own terms. By the mid-50s, he is the biggest name in cinema, and he is already tired of what fame costs him. The loss of privacy, the inability to walk into a hardware store without being recognized, the way strangers watch him like he owes them something. He starts disappearing, between films, into the city, into neighborhoods where nobody cares who he is, small restaurants, old bookshops, streets where people are too busy surviving to look up. That is how he ends up on the east side of Los Angeles on a Tuesday in 1957. That is how he hears a woman's voice trembling behind a shelf of paint cans. He does not think about it afterward as a heroic act. He has said this in conversations that were never meant to be public. In letters that surface decades later, he says it the way a man describes moving a stone out of a road, because it was there, because it was wrong, because doing nothing felt like participation. But here is what history remembers. The man in the gray suit never operates in that neighborhood again. 3 other families whose names we do not know benefit from the same quiet legal intervention in the 2 years that follow. A bakery on Figueroa Street, a tailor's shop in Boyle Heights, a small printing business run by a man who came to Los Angeles from Eastern Europe with nothing and built something over 20 years. All 3 facing the same machinery, the same notebooks, the same polite voices that are not polite at all. All 3 saved by the same invisible hand. None of them ever know who helped them. They assume it was a lawyer, a city official, a bureaucratic technicality. It was a man in a cap and old boots who bought a box of nails and happened to hear a woman's voice. The world eventually finds out because of a letter. In 1994, a journalist working on a profile of Brando receives an anonymous tip, a phone call. A woman's voice, older now, who says she has always known and has always stayed silent because she was asked to. The journalist asks how she knows. The woman pauses for a long time. Then she says, "Because I was there that day, in the store. I was one of the customers who went quiet." She had recognized Brando immediately. She had watched the whole thing from 3 feet away. She had seen him place the envelope. She had followed the story quietly for decades, the way you follow something that changes how you understand the world. She says one thing before she hangs up. He never wanted anything back. That was the part I never understood until I was old enough. He genuinely did not want anything back. The journalist calls Brando's people for comment. Brando declines. Of course he does. This is a man who rejected a gold Oscar statue on the biggest night in Hollywood because he thought the gesture mattered more than the award. This is a man who lived on a private island in French Polynesia for the last decades of his life because fame felt to him like a cage dressed in velvet. He built a life there among people who did not know his films and did not care. He learned their language. He sat with them at meals. He was, by every account of those who visited, completely at ease in a way he never managed to be in Hollywood. Like he had finally found the right room. This is a man who once told a reporter, in that slow, low, unhurried voice that made every sentence feel like a verdict, "Privacy is not a luxury, it is a form of dignity, and dignity is the only thing worth protecting." He died on July 1, 2004. The era of the dangerous, completely unmerciful genius ended with him. Robert De Niro said it. Al Pacino said it. Leonardo DiCaprio said it. Without Brando, the entire architecture of modern screen acting does not exist. He won 2 Academy Awards. He was nominated 7 times. He appeared in some of the highest-grossing films in the history of cinema. He changed the way human beings perform emotion in front of a camera permanently and irreversibly. And none of that is the most important thing about him. The most important thing is what he did when nobody was watching, when the screen was dark, when the lights were off, when it was just a man in a cap and a woman with trembling hands and a coward in a gray suit who thought the world belonged to him. There is a photograph that exists from somewhere around that period. Brando sitting alone on the steps of a building that might be in New York, might be in LA, his elbows on his knees, his head tilted slightly down, not looking at the camera. He looks like a man thinking about something he cannot fix, or maybe a man thinking about something he just did. The caption under it, wherever it circulates online, always reads the same. Do not follow the rules, destroy them. If this story moved you, subscribe, hit the bell. Tell someone who needs to hear it today, because some stories are not meant to stay quiet. Pass it on.